Good morning, everybody. It is Brandon Foster, author of Confident AF, Unleash Your Inner Badass. And I'm here today to share and encourage an incredible Born to Slay testimonial for all of you who have been watching and lovingly creeping behind the scenes. I've been very excited about this testimonial. I honestly thought that I had done this testimonial, and Tiffany, who is going to be with us, she's like, no, I never did a Born to Slay testimonial. She went from Born to Slay to Born to Dominate. And she's been such an encouragement to me, like a lot of my clients have. And I'm so excited for her to share her personal journey and her story inside of Born to Slay with all of you all today. So let me go ahead and bring her in. This is Tiffany from DPP Travel. She's a luxury travel advisor. Boo. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you. And yes, I'm glad I get to finally do this because I love Born to Slay. And as we get through this, you'll see how much it actually helped and changed many things in my business and my life.
I love that. Let's go right in. Why don't we start with give everyone a little bit of your professional background, where you come from, and what led you to join Born to Slay?
Well, I started in the travel industry in 2015, and I was working specifically with an agency that did, mainly theme parks. And I was there until about August of 2019 when I decided I wanted to do more. Anybody who does theme parks understands that it's hard sometimes to just do that because your clients sometimes want to go different places. So I started an agency in 2019 with a business partner, and perfect timing for COVID, yay! And that makes you question exactly what decisions you make leading into that. And we really kind of buckled down and put all the things into place during COVID that we needed to, workflows, processes, all of those things. And from there, the business really started picking up, but I kept stalling out. Like I couldn't get beyond a certain point. And realizing that, I happened to have seen something on Facebook one day and I was like, I'm kind of interested in that. Okay. So I started following you and then I joined your Facebook group. And from there, I was kind of like, well, the common denominator in all of this seems to be me. And therefore, maybe I need to figure something out. So, because we had all the processes, we had everything in place. I know I'm good at what I do, but I knew that I could go further, but I had to figure out why I wasn't. And that's where, I reached out to you. That was when you had an assistant, and I spoke to her for a couple minutes, and she, asked some questions, and then we set up a time to chat. And during that time, and for me, it was kind of like, okay, maybe not. But then it was, I've invested all this time and money in processes and workflows.
Yeah.
It's probably time I invest some of that money in myself so that I can go forward and be better and figure out what the block is. And that's when I, joined Born to Slay. And that's when kind of everything started changing.
That's so great. And I love that you said you were the common denominator. Oh man, like that hits me too. Cause like, I think for any human being, we always want to blame like situations, circumstances, maybe people, clients, the algorithms, whatever it is. And really is falling into victim mode, even if it's unknowingly, because I don't think any of us really want to imagine ourselves as a victim. We all want to imagine ourselves as victors, and the Bible even says you already have victory in Jesus, right? And it's very different to be taking strategy and applying that in your business from a place of victory and certainty as opposed from doubt and fear. And I just love that you said you had to take responsibility for yourself, because every single time I get frustrated, I realize that the buck stops with me too, bro. Like you cannot escape that so much. And I'm so grateful for God's grace, which allows me to not carry that guilt and that shame that that once you realize you are the common denominator, that's when you realize that you know you need co-creation, you need God's grace to help you move through your own limitations, your own self-doubts, uncertainty, and rely on him and his goodness to help lift you up. So I love all that. Let's go right into what was the root. What did you discover and find inside of Born to Slay, and what was that impact?
Well, that's a long conversation, but the short version is it goes back to obviously mindset, and for many people, things that they were taught or believed from childhood. And mine was that I wasn't good enough, that I had to work harder, I had to do more. And that was very evident in the fact that I was great at what I did. My clients loved everything that I was offering them, great testimonials, all of my service, the workflows were in place, the processes, I mean, all of it was done. It was fantastic. But it was me. I don't want to, I don't know that I was actually sabotaging anything, but I don't know that I was fully putting myself out there because I didn't think I was good enough, that I had done enough to deserve what I wanted. And it wasn't true, obviously. But having to work through that and, come to terms with changing that paradigm of I am worthy, I am enough just because I am, and not having to do all of the pieces that I felt like needed to be done, and just relying, as you stated, on the co-creation and really understanding that everything that I'm doing will work out for my good. If I fail, it's still going to work out for my good. I'm going to learn something, and that it's okay to do that. And sometimes, perfect is not what we're going for, because we can't be. And just being enough and who we are and relying on God and the co-creation process, it changed everything. And I mean, it absolutely changed everything, so that I didn't do this in my personal or my professional life anymore. And that I was confident enough to go, this is it. This is me. This is who I am. This is what I offer. Love to work with you. If you don't, that's okay. There's somebody else waiting.
Wow, that's a very powerful stance when you realize that you don't need the clients to validate you or the sales to validate you, because then all of a sudden, because you don't need that validation, they come in because you're no more trying to prove anything. And I've struggled myself. Just for any of you all listening, all my courses and everything I create come from my own struggles, y'all. My own struggle bus. Okay, stories. And there's been so many times in my life where I felt like I wasn't good enough and I had to prove myself to have the clients or have the sales. And the ironic thing about that is when you feel like you're not good enough, the people on the interwebs, the potential clients, the sales, they reflect that back to you and believe that you're not good enough either. So then they don't work with you, And if you feel like what you have is not good enough and you need to do more and you need to tweak more and you need to say things differently, all of it is basically absence of grace. And what happens is you create that. It's like, I can't, hire more people because my training is not good enough, or I can't have a higher level client because what I know isn't good enough. I can't charge that because I'm not valuable enough. Who am I to charge that? And I think it's so interesting how we often want our sales and clients to validate us and to prove who we are. And the reality of it has to be the other way around. You have to know and have that internal certainty first before those things can come into your life. And I don't know how people do it if they don't believe in God or don't use co-creation, because that's the whole point of grace, is realizing that it's not on your shoulders. That is what reduces overwhelm. So tell me, how did the co-creation piece, what kind of results did you experience? And I want to create two layers of this. So a lot of people watching this want the no fluff, no BS. Okay, what happened in your sales, Bill? What kind of clients did you start working with? Okay. But I'm also interested in, as I study more about abundance being and prosperity, not just being clients and money, but also peace and joy and the emotional aspects that maybe people who have a lot of sales don't have. So tell me about those practical results and, you know, the KPIs everybody wants to hear, but also in terms of inner stability that maybe you didn't have before.
Well, let's start with first. I don't want to say you're going to be challenged, but there are going to be things that happen. As you know, when I was working through this, there were a couple of big sales that I lost. And it was one of those things to where you're sitting there going, well, if I had done this differently, or if I had done this, or if I had done that. And, you know, I even reached out and I was like, okay, I just lost the sale. And you were like, it's okay, boo. Something bigger is coming. And I kept thinking, okay, God, something bigger is coming. Okay. The door was closed. The window's going to open. I'm just going to wait. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, keep believing, keep co-creating, keep, you know, trusting and having the grace that this is, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm working through the processes. I'm changing me. And, well, I tripled my sales for the year. And I had the biggest booking ever, which is a 300K booking for a client. So it works. And you were right by, you know, losing those bigger sales. And those sales, you know, they were 20K, they were 40K. So, I mean, they weren't small, but they weren't anywhere close to this one. But it was one of those things that just reaffirms you're doing the right thing. You're holding steadfast with your faith. You're moving forward, going, okay, I don't understand, but it's okay because I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm keeping the faith. I'm moving forward. I have grace, and I'm letting it play out. So, you know, by the time, and I think it was our call in December of last year that I happened to mention, well, you know, I tripled my sales this year, and your face was like, what? You didn't tell me that? And I was like, well, I didn't really think about it, you know, but when I got the big sale, I did text you or message you. I was in Venice at the time and told you, and I point blank said in that, I'm deserving of this. I'm worthy of this, not only because I'm great at what I do, but just because I am. Because that had so much changed the mindset before of, oh my God, am I going to be able to handle this? There was no question in that. You know, it was, I can do this. I'm deserving of this because I am, not because of just of what I do and how great I am, but because I am. And that alone, I think, was the biggest change, is that I am worthy of all of these things because I am, not because of all the things, all the trips I've been on, all the, you know, education I've taken or anything, but just because I am. And that comes from the co-creation and the reliance on the faith and the grace that comes.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to encourage any of you who are listening about this saying, man, I would love to have a 300K sale. I never had a 300K sale as a travel professional. So I don't want anybody here to feel bad about that. And I also want to remind you all that faith comes from hearing and hearing the good news of what God can do in your life and your business. And God has the tremendous blessings for you and your business too. And we are on our journey. I think the most important piece is to open up your heart to this. And you know, I know some of my biggest months that I've had in my business. I think my biggest month ever for coaching is 30K and revenue, profit, whatever you want to say. And I know that when you hit that largest sale you've ever had or the largest month you ever had, the next part of your faith journey is believing that it's not a one-off and believing that it can happen again and believing that it doesn't have to be hard and it gets to be easier and slowly anchoring into God's goodness, faith, and grace that it is not the maximum. It slowly gets to turn into a minimum or an average, if you will. And that's a whole nother level of mindset and faith and belief, you know? And I also feel like a lot of times those big months happen when we're not really looking for it. And to me, the beauty and that piece in of itself is that oftentimes it's our own doubts, beliefs, and controlling that gets in the way of the natural flow of God's grace that wants to flow into our life and our business. So I'm so grateful you share that with everybody. I think that's important. And like I said, I also think it's important for y'all listening to forgive yourselves of any judgments or saying that Tiffy is more loved than you or I'm more loved than you, because it's not true. And I want y'all to think about this as like Roger Bannister in the 4 Minute Mile, that once he had broken the 4 minute mile, it had never been done before. And less than 2.5 weeks later, somebody else ran a 4 minute mile. And so I hope those of you who are watching this get a tremendous sense of encouragement that if Tiffy can do it, you can have that in your business too. Regardless of whether you work with me or not. Okay. I just want you to have that encouragement. Now, what about the emotional piece? How did it just change how you felt about yourself, how you started to show up in your business? And you did talk about the disappointments that we all have as business owners, but how did that transmute and change how you viewed yourself and viewed those pieces and your emotional peace and stability?
I had greater peace. You know, I didn't go to bed going, oh, I got to worry about this. I got to worry about that. It was kind of, for me, it was like, I'm going all in. Like, it hasn't worked the other way. So I'm going to do it this way. I know what happens. I do it the other way. Let's see what happens when I do it this way. So for me, you know, as you say, going through the forgiveness part, forgiving myself, forgiving the childhood, and putting, you know, those kind of restrictions on who I was, and letting go of that, and realizing that there was no invisible level that I had to get to be good enough to receive this. Just to know, okay, I'm deserving of this, and I'm willing to do the work, for one. But for, you know, the other one is I'm going to also rely on the fact that this is bigger than me, and co-creation with understanding this is what I put out that I want to do. I'm receiving whatever you have for me, however it works, and walking in that faith and the peace.
Yeah.
I truly, there's such a great peace about that, and just allowing it to unfold. And you're right, that 300K sale came in September, and they were traveling in November. So I mean, I was with a group in Italy at the time that came in. So it was completely never even on my radar, anything like that. But just going, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And all of the other disappointments have worked up to this, you know, and understanding and not getting upset about the disappointments by saying, okay, that was not the right fit, and being okay with that was not the right fit. Not looking at it and berating yourself because you should have done something different, or maybe you shouldn't have charged a fee, so you could have booked it. Like, you can't do all of that. You have to be true to yourself, true to how you've set up your business, and just walk in the faith of knowing, okay, there's something else out there, and I'm just going to wait for it and continue to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. No notes. No notes on that response. You know, I mean, I couldn't have said that better myself. I really couldn't. You know, one of the things that I love most about Born to Slay is the one-on-one and spending time with you all one-on-one, which I don't, you know, for the most part, rare extenuating circumstances do I do one-on-one with anybody besides those in my mastermind. What is it like to have me as an encourager inside of your corner to help you think differently about yourself and your business? What is that like?
First and foremost, it's great. But you also have to understand that Brandon is here to push you outside your norm, because that's the only way there's going to be change. So in order to do that, he will lovingly say, okay, but I need you to go deeper. He will say it in a different way, but he will push you to do that so that you don't stop at your typical responses. And I use the example of, you know, when somebody goes, hey, how are you? And you go like, fine. Well, there's deeper issues there, but you give that general response so that people will leave you alone and you can move on. Brandon will not allow that. Brandon will go, Okay, but boo. And then he will go into his little thing of pushing you, and it's all for good. And joining the program means that you are willing to take that deep dive into yourself. You're going to be honest. This is a no judgment zone. And if you know anything about Brandon, you know he is very um, forthcoming with some things that's happened in his life and his childhood, and that, how it's affected his life and the things that he's had to work through, and understanding that on the other side is so much better than where you're standing right now. And I don't want to say it's greener, but it is more peaceful. It is more rewarding. And just to be on that journey, and you start looking at yourself and individuals differently, and you stop the judgment of not only yourself but other people, because you think, who knows what's happened to them to lead them to where they are, to what they're doing. And you have grace because you've been given grace, and you find that you're doing life and business in a different paradigm, and that allows you to be open and expand to not only giving but receiving, which is a huge difference from where I was before, because it felt like I was always going, okay, where's my next client? What's happening next? What's happening next? And it was, that whole change has completely changed the business and me.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. That's huge. How did being in this container change how you viewed and utilized the practical pieces that you already knew about the travel industry?
Well, when you go into luxury, they always tell you don't sell out of your pocket, because your pocketbook may not be as big as the ones you have in your clients. And just coming from a place of, how can I serve these people? Not, how can I sell them this or that? You come from a place of service, and you come from a place of being open to many opportunities and many things that come from clients that you never would have thought before, and understanding that your grace to them, your grace to suppliers, and to all of the people you work with comes back tenfold. Even if you're not trying to do anything, you're just emanating that spirit. And it's huge because, we are energy beings, and when you give off that, you learn so much about people. You create deeper relationships and deeper commitments from people because they have that connection with you. And it helps you not only with your team, with your clients, but with your partners, to really be present and receiving and giving, which is something that I had to learn through the process. That has really, again, expanded different opportunities, not just with helping my clients, but helping, suppliers sometimes when they have an issue that comes up or they have a question. And those relationships are huge. It's not just processes now, it's actually relationships. And what can I do to service these and build these and actually help them? Because the more I help someone is the more I get in return, which is huge.
Okay. You help suppliers? Elaborate on this. This is new to me. How have you allowed, and I love this because I'm learning more about this myself, is that the more that you receive God's love inside of your life and your business, the more you can give it. Just like if you have more money flowing in, you can employ more people. If you have more health and vitality, you can have more energy to help other people around you. How are you helping vendors? This is news to me. Tell me the details.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things to where, I have great relationships with them. And sometimes they may reach out and go, I have this person who's reached out. Do you know them? Can you give me some background on them? Or they may say, your client stayed here. What was their feedback? Or, just building up that relationship and that trust, so that, like, when I send my clients somewhere and then they come home, not only do I send a welcome home card to my clients, but then I send that email to my suppliers and I say, thank you so much for your partnership. I greatly appreciate it. My clients mentioned this, this, and this on their trip. It was a fantastic opportunity. And I want you to make sure that you share that with other people so that they know that I continue to appreciate and build on that relationship. And then they can see what clients are enjoying as they build these trips for my clients. So that we can have that open rapport, and they're like, oh, well, your client like this last time, would this be a good fit for these clients? So that they're now going, Tiffany's clients like this, we can offer it, or we can give it, to her other clients, those kind of things, so that they know this is speaking to clients when they travel, especially the ones who are culturally aware and they want to be more immersive rather than just checking off sites in their trips. They love the cooking class. They weren't very hip on the wine tasting, those kind of things, so that I'm helping them narrow down what really works. And then they know they can come to me and say, well, what do you think about this? Or, here's a fam, this is what we're doing. We'd love your take on this. Is this a good fit for your clientele? Those kind of things, so that you're really helping them and yourself with your future clients.
I love that. It's like gratitude. I mean, you're just giving more gratitude and helping people thrive where they are too. I love that so much. So what would you say, Tiffy Boo, to somebody who is on the fence, maybe not sure if this is right? And we can even go a little bit deeper. Let's say somebody who's been in the travel industry way longer than I ever was, like you, who knows? I know way more about this industry than he does. How can he possibly coach me on who I am and my mindset and bless my business?
Well, yeah, because I'll be celebrating 10 years this year. But honestly, when I talked to you, it was never for me about the business and what you knew about travel or what you didn't know. It was, how is he going to help me be better at being me, owner and person, which I think is the thing that people need to look at. Is if you've been into any industry for a while and you find yourself a bit challenged or stagnant, then the question is why? And if it's because you know all the things, you have all of the sales, you have all of this, but you're not able to move forward, then obviously you have to find someone who can help you figure that out. And for me, that was you and the Born to Slay process, because going through that, on a weekly basis and having you check in and say, okay, well, I saw this. What is your thought on this? What is your, why are you feeling this way? Why would you say that? To really make you go, well, that's what I've always said. And you go, okay, thank you, but let's try again. And then you're like, okay, so now I've got to go really deep and figure out where this came from. That's huge. That's really huge, because you want us to do that. And so thinking about, do I want to do this? Do I want to not? Investing in yourself. You'll spend all the money to get the better website, to get the better this, the better that, the process. You'll spend the money for that. But many times you've said, but many people are like, well, I don't know that I want to spend that money on myself. And it's like, you are what you do. And if you don't spend the money on yourself, then your challenges will always prevent you from moving forward. I don't care how much you try. I don't care how much you do. You're always going to hit that wall. So being ready, and that's a big step, statement and step, is being ready to say, I want to deep dive into what's preventing me from doing or being what I know I want to do. So being able to say, yes, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to do the process, and I'm going to be open and honest and real, because that's the biggest part of it. If you are not willing to do those three things, you're not going to see the changes that other people have when they've gone through this, because you have to be willing and accepting when you say, okay, Boo, thank you, but that's not the real reason. Because you're right. You have that gift of saying, No, I don't think that's what it really is. That, and when you say that, it's almost like people feel exposed, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable and being exposed means that you are accepting of these things about yourself that you've maybe hidden or you have tried to keep to yourself. And these are the things that have to be addressed and changed so that you feel safe to be seen. You feel safe to receive the blessings. You feel safe to open up to say, this is me, and be okay with it. So I would say you definitely have to be willing to do that. The investment is truly nothing based on the rewards that you get back. And I'm not talking sales. I'm talking the peace, the grace, the faith that you can walk in. It's insurmountable based on the financial investment. And just, yes, do it if you are truly prepared to do that, because it will change your life. It will change your business. It will change how you interact with individuals. And I can't, for me, see any negatives that came out of that. Were things challenging in the process? Yes,
Yeah.
very. But it had to happen in order for me to be where I am now, because I'd still be sitting there going, I can't get past this wall. Why can't I get past this? What's not working? How many more times do I need to update the website? How many more times do I need to, tweak the processes? How many more times do I need to change up the workflows? And it has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It's like Aurora and her dress. Should we make it pink or blue?
Blue.
God doesn't care whether you're choosing pink or blue on your website, boo. Okay.
Correct. Correct.
There are bigger things. I love that. Anything else on your heart that you would like to share about the Born to Slay Mindset Mastermind and your experience, Tiffy Boo?
Well, I think, going through the process, but then having the weekly check-ins that you do, the calls, and those are with the container. And then you have the one-on-ones monthly with you. It was one of those where you didn't really have the opportunity to get lost in yourself, which I think was huge, because you could reach out either through the group chat, individually to you, through the calls, however, so that you didn't feel like you were an island trying to do this process on your own. And definitely with your the weekly check-ins that we have to do when you finish the module, and you looking through those, I didn't ever feel like you were being a teacher, but I did feel like you were going, I don't feel like you're going deep enough. I think you need to look deeper into this. And doing that meant that, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at that and I'm really going to think about it and journaling about that. And then you would bring it up during the one-on-one calls to say, okay, no, the last time, I had asked you about this. No, what are you thinking about that now? So that, I mean, you came back and checked in again. It wasn't like you just answered a question and you moved on. And so having that, and you always did it in a loving and encouraging way. It was never like, well, now you said this, why? It was always like, why do you feel this way? Because it's always something in us that either triggered that or something that we've always been told that has prevented us from doing something that we really wanted to do or, didn't think we were capable of. So having those things really, for me, helped me move forward in the process. And you say the forgiveness module is the longest, and I'm here to tell you it is. It took me 3 weeks to get through it, but it was so worth it. When you get through that on the other side, as you always say, when you're standing on the other side, you're always like, okay, that was hard, but I feel better. And you will go back, and sometimes you will have to remind yourself, okay, we've already been through this. I need to let this go. We've forgiven this. And that happens a couple of times throughout the process, and which is not bad. But you are always there going, okay, now remember, we've let this go. So when we don't think of it in that way, how are we thinking of it? Which is always a good thing, because it does change the mindset, because you have to work on that consistently. And just having that encouragement and that personal one-on-one time and you always having the extra layer of, yeah, I don't think that's really what it is. So let's go a little bit deeper. And every time you would say that, I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't want to. And you'd be like, I know, but we're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you being in tune with that was huge. And that was really worth everything, to have someone to come through and go, that was great. Now answer this for me again.
I love that. I love that. I have nothing else I can add to this conversation. Honestly, oftentimes my clients are an extension of God's grace in my life and what I love to do. Because I told Tiffany, I remember on one of our calls, is like, I have no business coaching you from a practical standpoint. And Tiffany goes, yeah, I know, but that's not why I'm here. And so remember that your gifts and your talents are meant to bless people, no matter what industry you are in. And I've found this to be one of my biggest gifts to give other people, is encouraging and shifting how they think about themselves and how they think about God. And it's amazing to have people like Tiffany to bless me and for me to bless all of you. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing your experience today. I know we'll be filming a Born to Dominate testimonial, which is after Born to Slay. So I look forward for people being able to hear about that experience too. But thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all you're doing to help others and for all you did to help me.
Absolutely, Boo. We'll talk soon.
Okay.